Good morning, everybody. Is it morning there? Yeah, quite a few time zones of difference between us. Okay, very happy to get connected to it. I will trim a little bit my presentation in order to, this is my contribution to sorting out the issues, and very happy to do that. They want me to walk you in order to go circular with organics. I call them the cornerstone in zero waste programs. Let's start from scratch, back to earth. First of all, organics are just so fundamental in zero waste programs. We do have 122 municipalities, by the way, in Italy, above 90% separate collection. And without organics, it wouldn't have been possible, of course. This is a pie chart. Whenever we talk about composition analysis of waste, we use the pie charts. This is a pie chart from Asia. I wanted to show it as a benchmark because now they tell us, yes, but they are dwindling in the Western world, in the global North, there is a dwindling percentage of organics. True, but this underestimates the potential of organics. First of all, when they do the composition analysis of organics, you know, first thing they do out is screening out the fines. -20, -15, -10, depending on methodologies adopted here and there across the world. But anyway, the fines get screened out in order to have better hand sorting of the other waste fractions. But then we have to keep in mind that 70, 80% of the fines are organics. And once we implement separate collection programs of the organics, they get captured by such programs. And therefore, the true potential of organics programs is typically higher than what composition analysis tell us. This is, by the way, a pie chart I took from the US EPA website. And so it should basically depict the current situation of organics as a percentage in your municipal solid waste, roughly slightly less than 30%. It is slightly higher in Europe, but probably we will go back to that in a while. But there's not only a quantitative importance, there's also an operational importance of the organics, because once we get the organics out and we have got a low fermentability of residual waste, we can sharply reduce the number of collection runs for residual waste. So we can implement pay-as-you-throw systems based on the number of set-outs, for instance, and this optimizes the behavior by the households. Also lets us optimize the economics of waste collection, but also the lower the collection frequency for the residual waste, the higher the participation rate in separate collection programs, also for the dry recyclables, paper, glass, plastics, metals, and so on and so forth. Also, yes, we are discussing zero waste, waste management, but when we discuss organics, we go much beyond waste management only. Organics are really at the crossroads of many, many environmental policies. We may store carbon in soils. Soils are the second largest pool of carbon in the planet after the oceans. So if we store organics in the soil, if we give organics back to the soil, we can sequester some carbon, and it will be there to produce fertility instead of being in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide to produce climate change. There is an initiative, a global initiative, which was promoted by scientists, soil scientists. It is called the 4 per mil initiative, which aims at increasing the percentage of soil organic carbon by 4 per mil in order to give a fundamental contribution to strategies to tackle climate change. We can reduce the global impact of waste management. Waste management is the third largest contributor to anthropogenic methane emissions after agriculture and the fossil fuel industry. 20% of the 450 million tons of methane which are emitted a year are coming from landfills, basically. And so if we take the organics out of landfills, we sharply reduce the amount of methane coming from the waste sector. And we have calculated by 2030 a potential reduction, a potential mitigation by around 80% of that. We can restore fertility, we can fight desertification. There is a United Nations Convention to combat desertification, which led to an agreement signed off in Paris back in 1994. And it calls on the importance also of giving organic matter back to soils in order to fight desertification. And compost is one such tool. All these are the reasons why, for instance, this side of the pond, I'm based in Europe, the European Union made it mandatory to have separate collection of the organics by January the 1st, 2024. It is already effective in quite a few fundamental countries such as Germany, Netherlands, Italy itself, and so on and so forth. But we are discussing zero waste. In zero waste and in zero waste inspired circular economy programs, we do have a cascading approach. We always want to keep the materials, the resources in their highest status for as long as possible. And when it comes to the organics, this defines the agenda. What is the order of priorities? First of all, feed the humans, food recovery programs. For instance, we do have an aspirational target of reducing food wastage by 30%, but this will quite likely be made into an obligation in the midterm revision of the Waste Framework Directive over here in Europe. Then we may feed the animals. And in last instance, we may feed the soils through composting and anaerobic digestion. Never ever feed landfills, not to discuss incinerators, of course, totally wasteful activity. May it be done also in large cities? I'm based in a city, Milan, northern Italy, which is basically the same size as San Diego, 1.4 million people. And besides the population, we do have 800,000 daily commuters who are coming into the city, producing food waste at least for lunch, and then they go have dinner at home for dinner, and 11 million visitors coming to Milan every year. Well, a consistent program, a comprehensive program for separate collection of the organics covering 100% of the population and tackling also food scraps was implemented in 2014. And the final results are these ones: more than 100 kilograms per inhabitant and year food scraps besides garden waste. But the next big thing has to be food scraps. So this equals a total capture of the organics generated by the city of 87%. Only 13% of the organics are still to be found in residual waste. So there is a huge potential of the system wherever you are, be it a small village, be it a big city, be it a metropolitan area. Okay, of course, we know the greatness of composting is full scalability, so we need infrastructure for composting, no discussion on that, but we may also start from scratch with home composting programs. We may teach people to do the do-it-yourself composting silo, for instance. We may have community composting programs. Also in big cities, this is Zurich, the most populated city in Switzerland, and they have got 600 community composting sites, the same in Besançon, in Nantes, in France, the same in Pontevedra, which is a northwestern region in Spain, and so on and so forth. This is also another community composting site. But let me go swiftly towards conclusion. This is a bird's eye view of a rural composting site. The Austrians did something particularly intriguing because instead of building brand new sites, they engage with the farmers and they say, okay, you have got the concrete slabs, you have got machinery, and above all, you have got interest in the use of the end product. So we contract you the service for composting, and you will compost the organics that we will collect throughout the community. Or sometimes for large cities as San Diego is, we need the centralized composting hubs totaling tens of thousands tons a year, if not hundreds of thousands tons a year. One last bit on anaerobic digestion, because I know this is getting very, very high on the agenda. Indeed, anaerobic digestion has got some benefits, additional benefits, since that it keeps carbon in the form of renewable methane, and this may replace fossil methane as a fuel or in the kitchen fires. And so we may have two benefits, both renewable energy and a soil improver. Also, it is less dependent on the availability of the so-called bulking agents, garden and park waste, which may be an issue sometimes in the large metropolitan areas. Also, the footprint tends to be smaller than that of direct composting, but we have to consider it's more capital intensive. It needs subsidies to renewable energy, subsidy programs in order to be made cost competitive, and it's more affected by these economies of scale. So that all being said, we crafted at ZWIA a paper which helps you through the decision-making process. If you want to compare composting and anaerobic digestion, you will find there all that you have to consider in order to make the proper decision. But above all, the recommendations for anaerobic digestion done right. Because first of all, we say, instead of having a cogeneration with a combined heat and power station on site, upgrade biogas into biomethane so you can directly replace one-on-one fossil fuels. And also, but probably the most important to me as an agronomist is, do not consider land spreading digestate as it is, but always have it composted after anaerobic digestion in order to maximize the benefits of returning organics to the soil and minimize some downsides, such as uptake of oxygen from the soil, release of ammonia, which is a precursor of nanoparticulate in our rural areas, and so on and so forth. With all that being said, I just want to remind you that we have got an army of these guys who are really keen to work for us 24/7, free of charge. We just have to give them the proper food.